All right, everybody, welcome back to In Progress. This is our weekend roundtable discussion of the political stories and issues and ideas that are top of mind for progressive people across the Lone Star State as we head to the weekend. My name is Chris Mosier. I am the communications director here at Progress, Texas. You might be hearing In Progress maybe for the first time on the radio in Houston. We have just, over the last month, started doing this show in our new time slot on KPFT FM 90.1 FM Houston, Texas, every Friday morning at 10. About us at In Progress, we are a statewide nonprofit rapid response media organization promoting progressive messages and actions. We operate a major digital network, which includes social media, podcast, legacy media, and more, reaching millions of people across Texas and beyond all the time, every month. In Progress is also heard on Sundays here on KPFT HD2 every Sunday morning at 11 a.m. This week, joined by Executive Director Kathleen Thompson. Hi, KT.
Hey, folks.
We are also joined by the ever popular and ever faithful Advocacy and Development Coordinator, Tatum Owens. Hi, Tatum.
I'm here every week. Happy to be back. And very cool description for me. I'll take that, put it in my pocket.
Faithful and steadfast is what I would say about Tatum. So we got to cover something here real quick. On In Progress a few weeks ago, this has just come to my attention. I said something wrong. Egregiously wrong. Frankly, not real smart. Frankly, a little bit stupid. I'll say that. I'm putting that on myself. I'm going to have a retraction and a correction to this really, really dumb thing that I said recently on In Progress coming up at the end. I'm embarrassed. I'm going to fix it. I'm going to do my best to fix it with an apology and a retraction coming up at the end of the show. For now, though, we've had a really fun week coming out of the primary. So much buildup, so much drama, so much conversation. The way it ended, to me, in my personal view, satisfactorily and in an exciting sort of fashion. Let's start with you, Tatum. Talk about the marquee race. There's lots to talk about, of course, many races in the primary election. But let's talk about the conclusion of Jazz Zarico and the way it all came out.
Yeah. So the way that I found the results on election night was I was at my local Tuesday trivia show hosting, by the way, and I'm just refreshing my phone the whole time. But the way that it turned out, and it was not that night that I found that, but the next morning through our Progress Texas social media, of course.
Yes.
That Jazz, kidding. You thought James Tallarico, Representative James Tallarico, took the U.S. Senate slot. So he will be moving forward in the race. And it was a really interesting night, waiting to see the results pulled together. We'll talk more about some of the complications that pulled up along the way. Yep. But ultimately, the Democrats are set up for success with him as their candidate. And it'll be really interesting to see what the race transforms into. As a media person, I have been very interested to see his attention economy focused campaign and messaging revolving around hope, which stands in a great contrast to messaging you're seeing on his Republican side of the ballot. So
that's right.
Would love to hear from y'all how you're feeling post primary election day.
KT, what'd you see?
Well, I'm tired. First of all, I've been getting phone calls and texts from friends and folks outside of Texas checking on me. And I tell everybody I'm happy and I'm tired and I'm looking forward to sleeping this weekend. Yeah. So I've been doing this for a long time, so I don't get my heart as set on a specific campaign or a candidate that I might have when I first started doing this. And I don't think it has to do with the age, but it has to do with how long you've been doing this. So and at Progress Texas, we say campaigns come and go, and we're the permanent home for progressive messaging and action in our state. So what I am really pleased about is the turnout. Texas Republicans tried to steal 5 congressional seats from Texans. They belong to us. They don't belong to a specific party or any occupant of the White House. They belong to Texas. So 4 of those 5 Democratic Party voters outvoted the Republicans in those districts. So I think we're seeing a massive backfiring and massive mobilization because people are fed up and mad as hell and they don't want to take it anymore. And they're ready to do something about it. And what they can do right now since it's not the general, is vote in the primary for their candidate of their choice.
Right.
So I'm pleased that people turned out to vote the top of the ticket down to county races and state legislature races. We saw on both sides, on both parties, some incumbents be swept out by voter enthusiasm. And that's the choice of the voters. But I'm so pleased to see how many people turned out. I talked to everybody that I met. I talked to people at the gas stations, at the grocery stores, at the post office about voter turnout. And one of my board members texted and said, "Is it all this Dallas turnout from you, Kathleen?" And I said, "Ha ha ha." People are wanting to participate. So I'm really thrilled about the results in the terms of turnout.
There are definitely some demographic shifts, and we talked about this some last week. And if you want to, a deeper dive, maybe go back to In Progress from last Friday. But clearly, a lot of younger folks coming out to vote on the Democratic side. We are seeing a significant aging on the Republican side. Republican numbers were up too, by the way. This was not all a D story. This was one of those situations where there were exciting races on both sides. The Crockett-Tallarico situation was exciting. On the Republican side, Cornyn v. Paxton, and then with Wesley Hunt mixed in there too. That's also a lot of drama and drew out a lot of their folks. But what we found out, looking at some of the demographics data that came out of that, was that a lot of much older people, a good chunk of them over 70, are now voting on the Republican side of things here in Texas. And that just is what it is.
That's not sustainable. You don't have an organization or a political party or a church or anything where the majority of your people are septuagenarians.
That's right. And unless you're planning on everybody living to 120, Kathleen is absolutely right. That is not going to last much longer. So the big win for James Tallarico, we've got months to talk about that. Let's also quickly mention that Gina Hinojosa, Austin State Rep, won handily. I mentioned on the Daily Dispatch, if you include Gina herself, there were enough people on the Democratic ticket for governor to form a baseball team. I believe there were 9 of them, maybe 8, but pretty close to a baseball team.
Fair.
In a situation that, you would have expected Gina, who was very much the front runner in all the polling and whatnot that we were seeing for a long time, you would have expected her to maybe take, 49% of the vote and be in a runoff against someone who got 4% of the vote. In this case, that didn't happen. Gina has won outright, which leads me to something that we've learned definitely about James Tallarico's win, as all of this has been crunched out and talked about. Really, really intentional activation amongst Latino communities across Texas, especially in South Texas, Bexar County, Webb County, and up and down the Rio Grande Valley. Very, very active, multilingual English and Spanish approaches. Lots of advertising put into soccer games. Lots of advertising put into Spanish language music award shows in particular.
Mm-hmm.
They employed a small team of Spanish-speaking influencers to get the word out about James Tallarico. They very, very much went after this audience, and it paid off huge for them, to the point where it changed the map sort of across Texas. We're used to Dallas and Houston being very much the gravitational centers of the Democratic turnout in Texas. In this case, James Tallarico was able to hang on to Central Texas, the Austin area, which is his home base, but also with this massive push for Latino communities in South Texas, was able to offset a really huge amount of turnout that was way up. We talked about how the massive turnout, a lot of that was driven by DFW in general. There were tons of people coming out in Dallas-Fort Worth, especially Tarrant County. And so we see Tallarico really kind of playing against those odds, against that tendency, that historic tendency, and coming out, smelling like a rose at the end. But a great job done there.
Yeah, and definitely that's on the part of the campaign, but I think also the context that Texan voters were approaching the polls and this primary election matters too. Something that our team here at Progress Texas tried to really remind people about was the fact that Republican Congress members tried to redistrict and successfully did redistrict Texas leaders out of their representation. And so many different people went to the polls with different U.S. Congress members on their ballot than what they voted previously. And still people turned out in droves to the polls.
How are those Republican map makers feeling right now? After all they went through to get those maps pushed through, just assuming that all these Hispanic voters were just going to forgive everything that Donald Trump had done since they voted for him in 2024. They were going to be tried and true MAGA. They were going to be flying those flags and wearing those hats and doing all that stuff. I wonder how those people are feeling right now.
Yeah. And of course, that racial redistricting targeted majority minority districts, which broken down means congressional districts that had a majority of people of color as opposed to white people. So coming back to the Tallarico campaign, I was looking at this Politico article on Latino turnout for Tallarico because I was interested to see how much was that surge and what does that relate to. They say in 5 different rural majority Latino counties, more votes were cast in Tuesday's Democratic primary than for Kamala Harris in the presidential election. That is crucial. People do generally, historically, people do not turn out for the primaries. So even more so, this is a historic surge that we saw during early voting and continued into election day.
And the issues that are sweeping across Texas that are not demographics based are an overwhelming rebuke of the big bill that raises taxes on working Texans all across the state, that defunds healthcare for people all across the state right after the Texas legislature finally passed their voucher scheme that defunds our neighborhood public schools all across the state. So those issues transcend, and I really think matter to people, no matter if they're in, Euless, Texas or El Paso, Texas.
Yeah, I think it's a combination of bread and butter stuff that everybody's worried about. But I think, that waking people up, people just simply in Texas have slept right through the primaries, if not the general. We're known for low voter turnout. I would say there's an argument to be made that this big turnout is due to the fact that our country is in a crisis. Our country is in a serious situation.
And especially here in Texas, where we see the forefront of the fight against and demonizing immigrants and people of color across the country. All the detention facilities are based here. It all comes back to this state. So I am proud that people are fighting back using that fundamental tool of their vote that so many other people have fought for, especially during this moment where U.S. citizens are being abducted and murdered. And as Chris said, in this moment of crisis.
Yeah. It's an ugly situation, and people are noticing. That's the good news. People are noticing. People are ready to do something about what they see, and that's the good news as we move forward towards the fall, and really actually towards May, towards the runoffs, which we'll get into that a little bit. Let's finish up with Jazzarico, though. Congresswoman Crockett, gracious as she could possibly be, on the day after all of this happened, and there was more to happen that we'll talk about that she, I think, could have very easily have made a case to kind of continue the struggle about, and we'll get to that in just a second. But a terrific and very, very gracious concession statement that she made the following morning. She's ready to rock for her side of the ticket, and that's great to see. Jasmine Crockett, how old is she? She's like, what, in her mid-30s? I think something like that. So she is by no means out of the picture.
And went straight back to work after the primary, too. Went straight back to work. Again, so proud to have a Texas representative who is ready to deliver on progressive values and standing up for our communities. That is something that I was really proud to see as a Texan, and why it's important to have leaders who will hold people accountable.
Rep Crockett is in her 40s. She's an 80s baby. And let me echo what Tatum just said about how she immediately got back to work. Let's give some credit to Rep Crockett for Trump firing Kristi Noem. We saw Rep Crockett take her to task in the hearing. We saw Republicans and Democrats express their outrage over the way that she's been running the department. And on the day of the recording, moments before we're recording, Trump says she's out.
Wow. I had not heard. I'm hearing this news as we're recording this, even right now. So
thank you, Rep Crockett.
This is quite literally rapid response media that you're hearing happening right in front of your face here. So thank you to Congresswoman Crockett for all she's done. Let me also throw in real quick, that the one factor of the entire primary race between Crockett and Tallarico that must be considered is the fact that she has also been operating as a sitting member of Congress, working hard to represent her district in Dallas, in D.C., in a situation where other large urban districts in our state have gone without representation at all for pushing
That's
a
right.
year, and arguably longer than that in some ways. So my hat is off to Jasmine Crockett for helping bring a massive amount of attention to the crisis that we are in our country and in our state. My hat is off to her 1,000% for sure. Let's cover real quick something that did happen in the middle of election night that I think a lot of people have missed out on. And I think the media coverage on this has been a little bit lacking, and I would like us to do something about that.
Not our media coverage.
Yeah, exactly. So what happened was, and I actually want to let Kathleen take this. She's our resident Dallas chieftain down there, up there, I should say. We talked earlier with both Cardell Coleman, who is the chair of the Dallas County Democratic Party, and also Kim Gilby, who's the chair of the Williamson County Democratic Party. This was, 6 weeks ago, something like that, a long time ago.
In
about
December.
A month, that there had been, let's say, shenanigans afoot with their Republican County Party counterparts. Kathleen, take it from there.
Unfortunately, the law is, and the Honorable Cardell Coleman says that it's a priority of his in the 2027 convening of the state legislature to get this law changed. But for now, for what just happened this week, if one party wants to have separate primaries and then go to precinct-based voting, if I take my ball and go home, I can say, Chris, you can't play either.
Aw.
How does that work? How does that make any sense? But that's exactly what Republicans did in both counties. We're going to change the way we do things. We're going to be regressive. We're going to make voting a lot harder and deal with it. So yes, we've been covering this in emails and pods and videos and trying to get the word out. We're an independent media source that relies on you, dear listeners, to share this information.
Right.
But the way that voting has been going for years, it was different in Dallas and Williamson County. So if I live in DeSoto, but I work in Uptown, before I go pick up my kids from daycare, I'll go vote where it's close to me. And if I'm more busy working 2 jobs and I don't know that it's changed this election only, I'm going to go vote where I've always voted. And if there's not somebody standing in line to say, hey, are you sure you're supposed to be voting here? Are you supposed to be voting here? At hundreds of polling locations across the county, I may stand in line for a while, get to go vote and be told I'm in the wrong place.
Mm-hmm.
And this is exactly what we talked about months ago and didn't want to happen. And it happened.
Yeah.
And I know that the Dallas County Commissioners approved, I think, $1 million on voter education. But we have so many people who are busy with their own lives. How are you going to know unless the county goes and knocks on every door and tells people face to face? It's just difficult to talk about a change in a matter of really weeks.
Right.
And say the way you've been doing something for years isn't going to happen anymore. And that's what happened in Dallas County. And it's unfortunate that Republicans had that power over a party that's an opposition party, and Republicans don't control the county here. They don't have the majority votes, but because they could, they did.
Yeah.
And it's really unfortunate.
These shenanigans are not new. Voter suppression in Texas is not new. This was a masked attempt to suppress the vote in DFW, right? It's pretty clear. That's what was behind this. But calling back to 2024, if I remember correctly, the Republican Party of Texas, on their propositions that they put out every single year, I'm forgetting what that's called, but basically their list of goals was to create a closed primary. Thank you, platform. A closed primary here in Texas, limiting the vote, and that would institute a ton of other bureaucratic decisions that would make it harder to vote. That is one of the good things about the primaries here in Texas. We actually do have the opportunity to have an open primary, not the case for a lot of US states. So this is not new. It was really unfortunate that so many voters who did have the energy and the intent to go demonstrate and show up and use their civic muscles, but unfortunately thwarted.
And it's meant to sour people on voting.
Yeah.
Why should I try so hard? This was so upsetting. Maybe I went through all of that and the person that I wanted for whatever race didn't win. Why would I go through all of that again? It's meant to suppress the vote for November, really. But y'all, we can't let them tell us what to do. If there's a hoop in front of us right now, we got to jump through those hoops until there are enough people in the state legislature to change the laws and make voting easier for every qualified eligible voter instead of so hard. Texas is the hardest state to vote in by design because the people in power are afraid of you and me.
Absolutely.
As Tuesday night developed, I think that, Kathleen, was very much in evidence because lots and lots of folks, just like Kathleen said, showed up, waited in line, got to the front of the line, discovered they could not vote in the location where they had waited for gosh knows how long, 45 minutes, an hour or 2 hours, however long it was. A lot of those folks, actually Cardall Coleman, the aforementioned, chair of the Dallas County Democratic Party, got with a judge in Dallas and said, hey, we need to extend voting hours tonight. Can we do this? A judge said yes. They extended the voting hours in Dallas County until 9 p.m. So a lot of those people, hopefully they figured this out while all this drama was going on, managed to get back to where they were supposed to be, waited in line again, and then got their votes in. So between about 7 p.m. and I think it was about 8:45, something like that, the word came down that Attorney General Ken Paxton, who is on this very same ballot on the Republican side, through his power as the Attorney General, had gone to the Texas Supreme Court, asked them to obviate this judge's order in Dallas to allow voting to continue longer. The Texas Supreme Court said, sure, we're just going to pull the plug on it. And by the way, everybody who tried to vote first was turned away and then tried again to vote a second time somewhere else. After 7 p.m., your votes are in the trash. Your votes are gone. I don't know, Kathleen, has anything developed about, do we know how many votes that was? Do we know, did those votes get counted or not? Has there been anything new in Dallas about that?
Cardall Coleman, on behalf of the county party, sued before Rep. Crockett was able to sue. A judge agreed that the polls could stay open till 9. The Texas Supreme Court has asked for the votes to be separated 7 to 9 after. Those cases at recording time, this is still ongoing. There may be further legal avenues to pursue, but at recording time, this is not over.
So those votes remain neutralized as we're recording right now.
Yes.
So yeah, so that to me, that is, if that was you, if you voted after 7 o'clock because you were told by a judge locally in Dallas that you could do so, your vote has been stolen. Your vote has been stolen by Ken Paxton, the Texas Supreme Court, and the Republican Party of Dallas County, is the way I see it. And that might be oversimplistic, but that's the way I see it.
No, and I think some of our listeners in Houston on KPFT would understand that feeling, noting that they were without representation, stolen by Governor Greg Abbott, with the choice to have put any election on throughout the last year on the ballot for Harris County voters, but that did not happen. So once the primary occurred here in Harris, CD18 voters finally had an opportunity to put down their vote for their congressional district.
Tatum, you're right. And, even beyond the experiences, the horrible experiences that have happened in CD18, Houston itself, the entire Harris County area, has been a punching bag in this way for Dan Patrick and Ken Paxton and Greg Abbott for years. You could write a book on the voter suppression stuff that's happened in Houston over time.
Yeah. And just some examples, most taking place through the legislature, targeting elections processes in Harris County. Lena Hidalgo, the Harris County judge, put through some measures at one point to introduce really exciting measures that would make it easier to vote. Once, like we said, it is extremely difficult to vote here in Texas by policy decisions that have been put into place. So drive-through voting was an example of one measure that was put into place during COVID. You don't want to interact with people during the height of the lockdown, but it's at election time. So you need to go to the polls and safely mark down your vote. And then that got knocked down. And a lot of other measures too, knocking down people's ballot by mail. We'll see how that continues into the November elections, if those will be targeted. Governor Greg Abbott really enjoys highlighting taking people's votes away and taking people off the voter rolls, which is the list of registered voters here in Texas. So I would expect him to do the same going forward. But turning towards Congress, and also still on the note of voter suppression, there actually is a an act before the Senate right now. It passed the House, the SAVE Act. If you've not already heard it, that's the Safeguard American Voter Eligibility Act. But basically, it's limiting ease for voting access. And it would introduce measures to require proof of citizenship. If you hear the term DPOC, that's documentary proof of citizenship. And it makes it so much harder to register to vote, to go vote, be at the polls. It has been highlighted over the past year or so as this has developed, for the example of being a married woman who has a different name than on her birth certificate. So
Right.
even that could provide opportunity for a bad actor to knock your ballot out and discount your vote. There are a lot of other examples, and I would try to make sure that every person who knows about the SAVE Act knows that immigration is being scapegoated to take away your vote too. It is all interconnected. And when Republicans in Congress have talked about the SAVE Act, they say it's to protect you and America by ensuring that only US citizens are voting. But it's not an issue. It's been proven. Statistics show that non-citizens are not voting. That actually would put them in danger. So it feels
Right.
like a non-issue. But then why would they put this forward if research shows differently? You know why. It's
Right.
another measure for voter suppression.
But this is going to affect so many people. I mean, it's
Yeah.
not just married women who took their spouse's name. I mean, this is if you're already registered and you move. Like,
Yep.
the US government is not sending out US passports for everybody. Do you know how hard it is to get a passport? Like,
That'd be awesome.
especially if you live in an
Lord.
urban area, and how many months in advance you have to try to schedule that to get to go and get a passport or to go and get your birth certificate. So all of these things cost money. Who's going to pay for people to get all these documents? Who's going to provide transportation for people to go and provide these documents? I don't have to have a Texas driver's license to be a voter. My grandmother was still voting after it wasn't safe for her to drive anymore. She didn't lose her right to vote.
That's right.
I mean, trying to get a birth certificate for her. I mean, she didn't have a birth certificate until she was an adult. You don't have to be living in an urban metropolitan area to vote. So it's just trying to keep people from voting. And I hope that the filibuster holds in the Senate. And I hope that the next time that we're recording, we say that this is in the trash.
The passport deal, I didn't have a passport until I was well into my 30s. You know, there are many people who don't do just a whole hell of a lot of international travel and don't really need a passport necessarily. Right. And so, and yes, the difficulty of scoring that is quite arduous and takes a long time. It's a great big pain, and it's expensive as well. So great talk, guys, and it's been an exciting and frankly exhausting week. I plan to do a little bit of sleeping this weekend, but I do need to get to this really serious error that I made about 3-4 weeks ago. It took a little while for it to come to my attention. That I had said something egregiously stupid on In Progress just a few weeks ago. And what it was, this was actually coming out of Taylor Romet's swearing in, that a whole bunch of us got to crowd into the Capitol and witness that. That was a lot of fun. I commented, you know, for people who may not have visited the Capitol since maybe they were kids on a field trip back in high school or something, or middle school, that there is airport-style security at each of the public entrances at the Capitol, complete with a, you know, metal detector, and they want you to put all your stuff in a basket and all that stuff. And I mentioned, what I said was, they don't want you bringing guns in there. That is completely wrong. In fact, I looked up the actual policy at the Texas State Capitol when it comes to firearms, and it is as follows. The Texas Capitol has very few restrictions on firearms, allowing individuals with a license to carry, or LTC, or legal constitutional carry unlicensed to carry handguns openly or concealed inside the building. Licensed state lawmakers are also permitted to carry guns on the chamber floors. Some key details of gun policy at Texas Capitol are as follows. Licensed to carry individuals with an LTC or a valid license from a state with reciprocity can enter the Capitol and carry firearms. Constitutional carry, that means if you don't have any legal reason that you cannot own a gun, you may carry your handgun in without a license. Open and concealed carry, both open and concealed carry of handguns are allowed throughout the Capitol building and the Capitol grounds. Not only all that, not only will they let you bring your pew-pew into the building, they absolutely will. Not only that, if you have an LTC or what used to be called a CHL, if you have a license to carry a concealed handgun, which I don't even know if you need those anymore in Texas, you can largely bypass security. You can get into what they call here expedited security lines, which to me, expedited, all that would mean is you don't have to empty your pockets. You don't have to go through the metal detector. And before I say something stupid again, I don't know exactly how easy it is to get in, but I do know that if you
There's
have
a whole
one of these
separate
cards,
line.
yeah, I think they give you a piece of cake and they give you a fun hat and the whole bit. So I was totally dumb to have the idea that security at the Texas State Capitol, where all of our lawmakers gather, would possibly even remotely be a place where firearms might be a no-no. That is completely wrong. And I take it back and I apologize for my error.
Egregious, personally.
I'm sorry I missed that episode that day. We accept your apology. Mistakes happen. And here at Progress Texas, we're an independent media organization that doesn't lie or carry water for somebody else. Right. And we can admit mistakes when they rarely happen.
They don't happen a lot. And I've told the staff, as the comms director around here, when we make a mistake, we go out of our way to own our mistakes and make sure that we get it right. We always try to get it right. We're human. We make mistakes. We will always go back and fix anything that we get wrong. I promise you that for sure. Yeah. So Kathleen Thompson, Tatum Owens, thanks guys for being with us today, and have a great weekend.
Bye, y'all.
Have a good one.
Awesome. Progress Texas is a statewide nonprofit rapid response media organization promoting progressive messages and actions while campaigns come and go. We're the permanent home for progressive media and action in the Lone Star State. In Progress also airs on KPFT Radio, Houston, Texas, 90.1 FM HD2 every Sunday morning at 11 a.m. And more information on the radio stations at kpft.org. More information about what we do at Progress Texas is at progresstexas.org.